A lot of the times I get stuck by trying to create a melody. It's just like, it doesn't work. I don't know. It's like the melody is repetitive, the synth is cheesy, or the other way around. It's just always something wrong. So sometimes what I do instead is I just get rid of those lead melodies and I start making my basses and trying to make my bass work. So this is how you do this. You need a sub bass, a few mid bass layers, and a top synth. And by gluing those things together, you can draw them in a very simple melodic pattern that is way more simple than you would have otherwise been forced to make with a lead melody. But because you now draw more attention to sound design, people just don't care about the fact that the melody is simple, and it's gonna work on dance floor really, really well. So now what I want to do is create multiple layers here. First layer I wanna make is a sub bass. So I'm gonna go choose a sine wave, remove the randomness knob, -2 octaves, open the filter for the A oscillator. I'm going to low pass it a little bit and add some soft clipping here. This is what I do pretty much every single time with all of my sub basses. So I'm going to make a really simple, choppy sub bass. And next thing I want to do is add an extra layer. So this is going to be a sub bass layer. So the mid bass layer, I want it to be a little bit more melodic. So even though I'm playing it in the same key, I want the pattern to be a little bit more creative. So I'm gonna make something like what I like to do is to use a low pass filter as well. Sometimes a little bit of distortion. Also, like with mid basses, you don't always want to have 100% volume control. So this simple layer, we're going to leave it like that. We're not going to do anything with this one at the moment. Next thing I want to do is to create a new mid bass layer, which is going to sound slightly different, maybe a little bit closer to low end, but it's going to follow a very similar pattern. So instead of this one, we're going to choose a different wavetable. It has to be very simple, guys. It's just a layer. It's not like the defined sound. You don't want it to be really, really like bright and super technical, because you got all those layers together and then you got some processing as well. So this is what you have at this point. And what we're going to do next is we're going to separate those mid layers. I'm adding these two on a separate mixer track called mid bass. And I'm gonna make sure they don't have the unnecessary frequencies. Right away you can hear how the sub bass is separated, so it's super fat. And I'm gonna put my sub bass on mixer track number 1. And now I want to use Thermal, which is an amazing plugin for distortions and weird sound effects. And I'm gonna apply it on our mid bass layer. Yeah, I like this one. I always use this one. So like the default one, I use it to glue things together because it adds a little bit of saturation. And then I'm going to open another instance and I'm going to go for a more creative preset here. So let's try and do that. Ooh, this is like, I use it too much probably, but it's an amazing one. So let me turn off some of those LFOs. Yeah, this is pretty good. So now what we want to do is to make sure that it's not too loud. So this is very important notice, guys. Mid basses, though a lot of people like to make them super loud in the mix, if you want your songs to sound more stylish and more fat, make sure that the mid bass is not too loud. Something like this is fine for now. So now that we got these main layers, we want to make a simple melody. This is how you can do this. You choose one of your layers, preferably not your sub bass, and you try to draw a very simple melody. Yeah, this sounds pretty good. So we're gonna copy and paste the same melody to the second mid layer. And now we're gonna copy and paste the same melody pattern to our sub bass. So we got this little idea right here. And next thing we want to do is we want to add some top synth layer that makes your whole thing work more creatively. So usually I'm going to add some like a sawtooth synth on top of it and maybe notch filter it a little bit. and add some distortion and some weird, processing. So this is what we're gonna do here. I'm gonna add like a notch filter, I guess, and just play around with it. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Then I'm gonna go to like an FX tab and I'm gonna add a few filters, equalizer, something like that. This is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm gonna add some chorus maybe. One thing I like to do a lot is to add like the 7th. So let's hear those things together. So you can hear right away, it sounds melodic, it sounds full, but you don't even have a lead melody. So now we're gonna try and mix those things together. I'm gonna use this top synth, let's call it a top synth. And I'm going to rename that one here as well so that you could kind of navigate in the video. So now I'm going to try and remove the unnecessary low-end information from here. Perfect. So I'm going to add this kilohertz distortion here because it makes the sound a little bit more fat. And also make sure it's not too loud. I'm going to control it. Sometimes I like to add even one more layer or something like that. So I'm going to clone this synth right now and I'm going to add one more just for the sake of interesting sound design. So let me try and play around and see what happens. This time I'm going with different wavetables. So I'm going to add something like this and something like that, just randomly. So we already have sub bass, we already have a lot of information in mid bass, we have a top synth, but we do not have enough information in super high end, so we can add a little bit of that noise. And maybe add some distortion. This distortion is a little bit dirty, so I'm going to apply an LFO and play around with the wavetables. Yeah, this is pretty good. So yeah, it's the same procedure. You want to get rid of the low end and make sure that it's not there. This should be fine. And now I'm going to add like a separate instance of thermal and play around with preset. I know this is the first one that I got to see and this is a good one. So one thing I want to do here is I want to put it behind the equalizer in chain because you can see that there are too many mid frequencies that pop up. So now we have a more creative top synth. Even though this is not necessarily a top synth, this is more like a mid bass layer, but we can switch an octave and turn it into a synth. Now I want to hear how they sound with the drums. Now it's all about mixing, and what I want to do is I want to put those drums on a separate mixer track, and I'm gonna put them lower in volume. This is a very weird thing that I do. I really like to keep my elements really low in the mix, and then I'm boosting master to like +6. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna limit the drums to like -7. Something like this. And I'm gonna boost the master channel. I'm gonna add a soft clipper so to make sure that the limiter doesn't round off the sound. And now I'm gonna push the loudness. Next thing I'm gonna add is a Pro L2, which is a limiter by FabFilter I use every single time. This is where I check my LUFS, and this is where I can see how loud my track is. It's not too loud, so I'm gonna push limiter a little bit more. The -6 is not too much, so I'm gonna use an aggressive mode instead. So why this melody sounds so cheap for now is because I boosted the volume of the top synths too much. So I'm gonna make sure that they go to the background. Also, I think those two synths right here, they have a little bit too much mid information because we already have separate mid basses. So I want to get rid of that. Something like this. And the same with this one as well. Now we can make them louder again and see how they sound. Yep. So let's hear the bass again. Yep. Fat enough, fat enough. So next thing we want to do is we want to introduce sidechain because, you know, without a proper sidechain, the track is just not gonna work. The drums are not gonna cut through. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to open a MIDI channel right here and copy and paste the kick snare pattern, put it right here. And now I want to modulate my sub bass. So I'm going to the sub bass right here and I'm opening Kickstart 2, clicking MIDI, going to detail settings, VST wrapper settings, and setting input port to 0. Now my sidechain is going to affect my sub bass. So let me hear that. Yep. I think we want to do that with mid basses as well, but it's now up to you if you want to have a lot of sidechaining, because I'm not a big fan of like mid bass heavy sidechaining, but I'm gonna add it here and see if that sounds good. So those mid basses are on the same mixer track, and let's play and see what. It sounds pretty cool. It starts to sound a little bit more like controlled. So now let's play together with the drums. From this point onward, you can continue doing whatever you want. You can add different presets, you can choose different wavetables, just as long as you follow the principle of separating your subs from your mids, from your top synths. You can make a song sound full and bright enough without the need of introducing a lead mellow. But yeah, if you like the content, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully see you again.